Hey everybody, it's Patrick
And Sarah,
from the board Meeples, and today we're going to do a how to play a photosynthesis.
which is a 2 to 4 player game designed by Yalmar Hawk and published by Blue Orange Games.
As always, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell for more board game content.
Thanks.
Thanks.
In photosynthesis, players will take on the role of a species of tree and compete with the other trees in the forest. You gain points and win by successfully taking more trees through their full life cycle, from seed to fully grown and uprooted. Start by setting up the play area, which includes putting the main board in the center of the table. Now you'll place the sun tracker segment on the starting location of the game board, marked with a sun symbol. Stack the sun revolution counters near the game board in a stack from lowest to highest. These tiles keep track of how many times the sun revolves around the forest. For a longer game, you'll use 4 revolution counters, otherwise return the 4th to the game box and just use 3 counters. Close to the revolution counters, you'll place the scoring tiles in 4 piles with the numbers arranged from lowest to highest. These scoring tiles correspond to the spaces on the board where you'll be growing and uprooting trees. The tiles with more leaves on the back correspond to the richer soil closer to the center of the board and gain more points than those with less leaves. If you're playing a 2-player game, return the stack of tiles with 4 leaves back to the box. Now each player will receive a player board for their chosen tree species, a light point tracker, 6 seeds, 8 small trees, 4 medium trees, and 2 tall trees, matching the tree species on their player board. Players will place their trees and seeds onto their player board in the matching spaces and keep the leftover trees and seeds to form their supply. The light point tracker will go on the 0 space on the light point track of their player board. Now assign a first player with the token. The suggestion is for the youngest player to go first. Starting with the first player, each player will place one of their small trees from their supply onto the outermost ring of the board. Then everyone else will place a tree and place a second small tree from their supply, so each player starts with 2 trees planted. The game is now ready to begin. Photosynthesis is played over rounds, consisting of 2 phases, the photosynthesis phase and the life cycle phase. In the photosynthesis phase, players will collect light points to later take actions in the life cycle phase. First, the player with the first player token rotates the sun 1 space clockwise. This part is skipped in the first round of the game. Then each player will compare the position of the sun to their trees and gain light points if their tree is not shadowed by other trees that are equal or larger in size on the board. What this means is you will draw a straight path from the sun down each aisle on the board. Small trees will cast a shadow on other small trees for 1 space. Medium trees will cast a shadow for 2 spaces. And large trees cast a shadow for 3 spaces back. Light points accumulate from round to round, and players keep track of their light points on their player boards using their light point tracker. Small trees gain 1 light point each. Medium trees would gain 2 light points, and large trees would gain 3 light points, as long as they're not shadowed by other trees of equal or larger size. Once all light points have been counted and marked on player boards, the game moves on to the life cycle phase, where players can use these points to take actions. The actions that can be taken are buying seeds or trees off of player boards, planting seeds from your supply onto the board, growing trees from your supply onto the board, or uprooting fully grown trees off of the board to gain points. Since trees and seeds can only be taken from the player's supply to be planted on the game board, players will eventually need to buy more trees and seeds from their player boards into their supply. Buying seeds and trees requires spending light points equal to the cost written next to the seed or tree on the player board. To buy something, simply pay the cost by subtracting light points, and then move the tree or seed from the board into the supply, starting from the bottom of the board up. Players can also spend light points to plant seeds, costing 1 light point per seed. Subtract the light point, and then take a seed from your supply and plant it around one of your existing trees. The size of a tree affects how far away the seed can be planted, and is referenced here on the player board. So 1 space away from a small tree, 2 spaces from a medium tree, and 3 spaces from a large tree in any direction. Note that a seed originates from a tree, which is a reference point on the main board. Players can't use the same reference point more than once per round, so this tree can't plant multiple seeds, and you can't grow a tree and then uproot it or plant a seed from that same spot on the board. The next action that can be taken is growing a tree. The cost to grow a tree is noted here on the player board, so 1 point to grow a seed into a small tree, 2 points to grow a small tree into a medium tree, and 3 points to grow a medium tree into a large tree. To grow a tree, first select a seed or a tree from the main board and pay the light points required to replace it with a tree one size larger from your supply. The seed or tree that comes from the board does not go back into your supply. It will instead be placed back onto the player board in the topmost available space. If there's no space on the player board, it's returned to the game box for the rest of the game. Finally, players can also choose to uproot a large tree for 4 light points, which is noted here on the player board. First, select a large tree that you own from the game board and pay 4 light points. Then place that tree from the game board onto the player board and collect the point token from the stack that corresponds to the space on the board. If there are no tokens remaining from the stack, the player would take a token of lesser value. So for example, if the 3 leaf pile has run out, the player would take from the 2 leaf pile. Once the last player has completed their actions in the life cycle phase, the round ends. The first player token is passed clockwise, and the game will continue with a new photosynthesis phase and a new first player for that round. After the sun completes a full revolution around the game board, you'll return a revolution counter to the game box. The game will continue until all revolution counters are returned to the game box, where final scoring will take place. Players will add up all their scoring tokens they received from uprooted trees, plus a point for every 3 light points at the end of the game, and the player with the most points wins. If there is a tie, then the player who has the most seeds and trees still planted on the main board will be the winner. To make the game more challenging, there are some additional rules that can be added, which are written on the bottom page on the back of the rulebook under Advanced Variation. So that's all there is to it. Let us know what you think, or if we missed anything, by commenting down below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any videos like this. See you next time.